bear in mind, I mean, in regards to what we're discussing here, it's quite difficult for the lawyer to be actually very specific because each particular case will be taken on its own merit as well. You have to understand that about the law. So, you know, if you are out there, you have any more questions, please feel free to call us. The number is on your screen this morning. We're talking to lawyer Sama right here in the New Day studios, and we're talking about interstate succession. Yes.
And we're doing the calculations.
The calculations, right, which are getting very, very confusing.
Yes, and it's more confusing when we go along. It says that when the surviving spouse, when there's no surviving spouse, then the three-fourths of the properties would go to the children. That's 12/16.
Right.
All right. Then if there's no surviving children, if there are no surviving children, then it will go, half will go to the surviving spouse. I hope you are getting confused.
I'm staying with you. I'm staying with you.
And then if there's no surviving parent, then that portion will go to the customer successor. If there's no customer successor, that portion will go to the surviving parent.
All right, we're going to speak to Ethel on the line at the moment. Good morning, Ethel.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Great, fine, thank you ever so much. What's your question?
Yeah, I think the law should be imposed, okay? Because when you are in a family and the head happens to pass on, I think most of the time the property is not only shared among the males and the females are left out, which I think is very, very bad.
Okay. Yes. Lawyer.
Well, the law does not make any distinction between the sex or the gender of the children. It just talks about children. And so for me, it would include female and the males.
Okay, so in such a particular instance, it would be more or less the family decision. If the males are taking the property and they're leaving the females behind, then there is...
Right, yes.
Yeah, it's more or less... And this would be more or less a customary issue.
A customary issue which is being done inappropriately.
Right.
Now, many people have used the customary law, and so now that this new law has come, many people are not able to adjust to it. They still insist that it is a family matter.
Right.
But now there is a law 111, which governs a person dying without making a will. So no family head, nobody should go distributing according to any customary law.
Right.
You must do it according to law 111. Okay. And law 111 defines a child. It includes male and the female, and nobody should.
I hope that answers your question. It doesn't matter which sex you are, obviously. According to law, PNDC law 111, as long as you are a spouse
a child,
then you are entitled to your portion. Okay, so continuing with what we were talking about. Well, as soon as we finish speaking to Adjoa. Adjoa, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Great. What is your question for Lawyer Sama this morning?
My question is, what about if the head is dead and he has a wife? He had a wife who he married for 4 years before he died. And the properties were acquired with his first wife, who has also died. Who died earlier. He married the first wife for 11 to 12 years, and they had one child. And after 2 years, he married again for 4 years, and he also died. And the man died in 4 years after the second marriage.
Okay.
And all the properties were acquired. So before the second wife came in. So how are we going to share the property?
Lawyer?
Yes, quite a complicated question. You see, the point is that when a person dies intestate or even testate, people do not finish the administration of the estate process. They leave it hanging.
Right.
And so then we go to the next level of it. You see, the question can be divided into many parts. The first part is that somebody has lived with another person as a spouse and they've acquired property, right? So much of it. Now, the lady dies first. If the lady dies, then we go to law 1 and we find out the portion of which should go to the surviving spouse, and then the children. We distribute that property, and that is the end of the deceased wife. the first one.
Yes.
Then if the person remarries, then we go to another phase of it, right? A new person, and then we look at the conditions, and then we also distribute accordingly. But we don't say that because the property was acquired by the first one, automatically it runs to the second one. I hope you get me.
Yes, I do.
We should have finished the administration of the first one.
Right.
Okay, distribute it according to the law.
Yeah.
He who gets what takes it, and then we go to the next portion, and then we look at that one too.
Okay. I hope that helps. We're going back to the phone lines, and we have Gifty. Good morning, Gifty.
Hello, good morning, Dad.
How are you?
I'm fine. I'll speak to you.
No problem. With your Koso. Today they are going to test me.
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about this same instance, dying interstate, but in a situation where there is no child, there is no spouse. There are no parents. What happens in that situation?
Well, no child. First, no spouse, no child, no parent.
Mm-hmm.
Then almost everything will go to the customary law successor, because then that's the only beneficiary
left.
Yes.
So I mean, in that particular instance, when the person dies interstate, the beneficiaries or the potential beneficiaries that we have, i.e. the children, the spouse, the parents, and the siblings, in any of them being eliminated from this list. So if there's no children, it will be divided
in a particular way. Most often, if the children are not there, if there's no surviving child, normally to go to the surviving spouse, right. And then if there's no surviving parent, normally that portion goes to the customary successor,
right.
All right, there should always be a customary successor because somebody is always aligned to a family,
right.
But if the person is not aligned to a family at all, and neither of these four these things, then it will go to the state.
All right. We're going to Emmanuel. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
How are you?
Yeah, this is Prince, not Emmanuel.
Prince, good morning.
It's a blame the gym trainer from People Center.
Okay, and what's your question this morning, sir?
Yeah, my question is when the father died for a long time, and they came to share the property, and it turned to riot. Sent the case to a police headquarters, and they took out of it. Go to our lawyer. What we to bring the family together. But the all
sorry, the line
is breaking, but I think the main stock of the question is that a person has died interstate, and in the distribution of the property, it's turned out to be
a riot.
Yes. that's a very strong word.
Word. Yeah, riot.
Right. Now, first of all, let's also make this point as we go along. Mm-hmm. Now, the law says that where a person dies interstate, no other person should interfere with the administration of the estate. Okay. So when a person dies interstate, no ebusuapenyi or no other person should, get up and arrogate to himself the authority to try to distribute the property.
Right.
It is an offense.
Okay.
And it must be sounded very, very clear to many people that it is an offense to interfere with the estate of a person who has died interstate. You don't go collecting keys, you don't go picking cars, etc. No. Mm-hmm. All right. And then now she's talking about right. It means that somewhere along the line, the explanation of the law has not come to them. Maybe that's what we are doing now, so that people should understand the law and be able to.
We are trying to explain it to you. We've got Rahman on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, Benny.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you too?
I'm fine, thank you, sir. What's your question?
Benny, I want to talk straight to Mr. Lawyer.
Yes, please, feel free.
Mr. Lawyer, you agree with me that when you compare the southern sector with the northern sector,
yes,
we have multiple marriages.
Okay.
And let's assume I am married to 4 wives.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that is my first wife. I've acquired most of my properties with that's my first wife.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I lost that my first wife.
Mm-hmm.
Do you expect that at that moment I should divide some of the properties that I have acquired with my first wife to the children? Because they are still under my care. Though logically, if it comes to the north, nobody will buy it. Because since the father is still alive, it will be difficult, the father dividing some of the properties for the children. Excuse me to say, having been that of late, I am going to the district court in Tamale and watching some of the proceedings in court. Though I've been to school, but I look at some of the decision of the court to be too strange. But when you go to the law court and you sit to watch some of the proceedings, you come to appreciate that, yes, law is different from just normal logic, the way we feel.
Yes, cousin.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether the law 111 has also included some of, let's say, I have acquired properties with my first wife and she passed away, and the children are still under my care. Do I go on to give them their own part of the property?
Okay. All right. We've got the question.
Well, you see, the first part of the answer is that Law 1 is just trying to make the best out of the worst.
That's right.
Somebody has died without making a will. And we want to emphasize that as much as possible, people should make wills so that we know exactly what happens to your properties in your absence.
Yep.
Now, he's talking about a spouse who he acquired properties with and the person died. Well, if the person died without making a will, we come to Law 1. And Law 1 says that what? 3/16 goes to him as a surviving spouse. He says that 9/16 goes to the children. He said that the children are with him. But technically, it goes to them.
Yes.
All right. And then whether they'll give it back to him or not, that's another ball game altogether.
Right.
But it goes to, and these are some of the problems in Law 111. Okay. And we may have to live with it and better learn to make wills.
Yes.
So that we avoid this problem.
Yeah.
I think that's the best we can say.
We're going to Efia on the line. Good morning, Efia.
Good morning.
How are you?
Please, I'm fine. What about you?
We're fine, thank you. What's your question?
Okay. I want to my father has 4 wives.
Okay.
And the first wife has 2 children.
Okay.
The second has 2. And the third has 9 children. And the last one has 2 children. And we have other extra 2 children somewhere. That one, the woman has been divorced.
Okay.
I want to find out, he has done a lot, but the extra 2 ones, he didn't include them in the one. And I want to find, in case he's not around, what are we going to do about those 2 children?
Okay, thank you for your question. Multiple spouses, plenty of children, but it seems that there's 2 that have not been included into his will.
Into his will?
Yes.
Well, like we said yesterday, now a father or a parent must make reasonable provision for a child in his will.
Yes.
So if he fails to make a provision for that child in the will, that child can go to court and say that, well, I was dependent on this man, now he has died without giving me reasonable provision, I will suffer some hardship. And the court would give something out of the estate to that child.
To that child.
That is if the person made a will.
Okay.
Right. But let's always remember that under our law, there's no illegitimate child.
Yes.
Even if the child was born out of wedlock, the child still inherits.
So long as it's the
whether
biological.
under will or under interstate succession.
Okay.
Yes.
I found some interesting information as well. I mean, this will also stress on the fact that of the importance of actually creating a will. In the United States, 52% of adults have not actually made a will. In the UK, it was actually 57% of adults that have not made a will. And due to these people dying interstate as well, the actual state has made a total of £52 million. That's right. That's the kind of revenue that they've gained from people not leaving wills and them not being able to hand over to anybody else.
Yes.
So there you go.
I'm sure if the statistics are stretched to Africa or like Ghana, you realize that about 80% of people don't make wills.
Wow. Livingston's on the line. Livingston, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning. How are you? By the grace of God, I'm doing well.
Great. What's your question?
I had a problem with a friend just died recently, and when the man died, the brother came to the house, started taking his things, the watch and the coat, and they tried to take the car. As a friend, what can I do to train this woman? Because she has left 2 children, and they are very young. It's very, very, we don't know. I can't take this next woman. I want to find out.
Okay, thank you for your question, Livingston. Lawyer.
somebody has died interstate, and then the brother has decided to take over the properties. Is that right?
Yes. Apparently, somebody's gone into the house and started taking watches and other materials.
It is a criminal offense.
It's a criminal offense.
It is a criminal offense to interfere with the property of a person who has died interstate.
Right.
So he can go to the police station and report that person, and that person will be brought to book. That is the first thing. And then also, as a friend of the children, they can start taking steps in order to enforce it in the court. But it's a criminal offense, and we must see it clear that no matter who you are, whether you are a family head, you are any chief or anybody, so long as a person has died interstate, don't interfere with the property.
Right.
It must be done according to law and one.
Okay, so there you have it. It is an illegality to mess around with anybody's assets afterwards. So make sure that you don't do so. We've got Aisha on the line at the moment. Good morning, Aisha.
Good morning, Benny. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine.
Great. What's your question?
I want to know if a man is married, or not really married, but he's like he's staying with his spouse, but they're not married.
Okay.
And he acquired all his property. And after his death, he willed everything to his niece. Is that possible?
Okay. So there wasn't an actual marriage, but they were living together.
No,
is that correct?
Yeah, they lived together for like 20 years.
Okay.
Together, and after he died, he willed all his property to his niece.
To his niece.
Is there any problem with that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, the law as it is, the person who was not married is not protected. I know that there are attempts being made now in order to give some rights for those that cohabit for a long time.
That's right.
But for the law as it is, if you are not a spouse, and a spouse, like I said the last time, is a person who goes through a ceremony to be declared a wife or a husband. So if you've not gone through it, then you don't have any protection in law. You are just a stranger. So we would advise that as much as possible, if you are staying with a person and you think that you are acquiring properties, please ensure that you are married so that you can get some legal rights under the law.
Okay.
That is so.
All right, so there you have it. Legally, unfortunately, there is nothing there. All right, we're going back to the phone lines, and we have Anita. Anita, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great. What's your question for Lawyer Samuel?
Please, my question is, my elder sister married for 22 years, and she didn't have any child with the husband, and the husband is dead. And the husband's family members are trying not to share the property with my sister. So what is she going to do?
Okay, thank you.
Well, then the person must go to court. And again, this point seems to be coming out. So let me read this section for you.
Go ahead.
Now it says that offense against spouse and entitled persons. Any person who before distribution of the estate of a deceased person, whether testate or intestate, unlawfully ejects spouse, unlawfully deprives the entitled person to the use of any part of the property, removes or destroys or interferes with the property, commits an offense and is liable to summary conviction to a minimum of 50,000 cedis and imprisonment not exceeding 1 year. So I'm saying it again.
Yeah.
It is so prevalent, especially outside Accra, where a person dies interstate, and then the family thinks that they should distribute the property the way it is not appropriate. It is illegal, and anybody can go to the police station and report them, and they'll be brought under this book, and then action will be taken against them.
All right, so there you have it. I'm sure that's happened to quite a few people.
Yes.
And you have it. I mean, you have the full extent of the law at your disposal. If that is the case, then please go to your local police station, report the case, and they will take it upon themselves to do what's correct. Yeah?
Yes.
All right, now we were talking about family and beneficiaries of interstate debts. Now, let's talk about the children a little bit. Now,
right.
We've established the fact that the biological child will always have a claim, whether it's interstate or testate.
Yes.
What happens in the situation whereby it's an adopted child?
The definition of a child in law is a natural child, adopted child, or a person who we say is recognized by the person who is dead as his or her child. So we call it local parentis.
Right.
Now, the emphasis is on natural child. I know that many instances occur whereby they say that, well, we never knew this child. In fact, sometimes they've not heard about anybody like that at all. But the person dies, and you see that some children start mushrooming very, very fast. Well, if it can be established that biologically they are the children of the deceased, then they are entitled to
their portion.
And that is another level of the problem under Law 111. because you may think that you have 5 children, but the person dies without making a will. In the moment, you're about 12 children.
Right.
And so long as they are biological children, they can also, in fact, they have the right, and then they must share in the property.
Nice one. All right, we're going back to the phone lines. I believe I have Kwabna. Kwabna, good morning.
Well, I want to ask, what is spouse? This is related to only women, because it seems to be that women come out to claim most of the time that they are the spouse. But can a man to inherit the wife?
Okay. Lawyer, do you want to? I mean, the
spouse is a person who is married. Okay,
so
to another person.
It's the man, it's the husband, it's the wife. It's
Yes,
both of
yes,
them.
yes.
And this whole situation that we're discussing, even though it has been mostly revolving around men leaving behind their wives, it's also the same vice versa.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if a woman leaves behind her husband,
yes,
it's the same.
The
situation.
same principle. The same principle.
Okay, Kwabna, I hope that answers your question. Okay, so let's continue a little bit.
Yes.
With the
yes, about the children.
Yes.
Now, so that is another strong disadvantage of the law one. We have situations whereby sometimes there are many children.
Yes.
That pop up in distributing a small estate, and then how are you going to do it? You know, especially if the children are not coming from the same spouse. They're about, just imagine, Benny, about like them who are talking about 4, 5 spouses.
Yes.
Then each has an average of how many children?
2,
children,
3.
4 children.
Yeah.
So we are talking about 16 children.
Wow.
Of different lines. Okay, coming together to share properties, and normally their mothers are likely to be rivals, right? And so you can see that the children also would fight. And I told you, I had an experience like that, whereby about 20 children, all right, and it becomes the survival of the fittest.
So that's what the guy said. It becomes a riot. But anyway, we're going back to the phone lines, and I believe we've got logistics on the line. Logistics.
Hello. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Great. What's your question for lawyer Samuel?
I have a question, but if you don't mind, can I speak my mother language? That's fine, please, so that I can explain the question I want to ask.
Fancy. Yeah.
He's speaking English.
All right, go ahead. Okay. We'll understand you.
No question is I lost my father 14 years ago. Now, we're doing a lot. Now, I'm for the child or extended family, you know. The land, you know, the jail, you know. Some number of crab for land, you know. No more secondary school number for land, you know. We're calling the same reason, orange farm. We be tell land, you know, orange, you know, tree, Russia, no for land, you know. Then call me to be sent there. Why the because you them for this did not go joining family, you know. The land no one easy. So no Tassy living on one island, Mr. White Jilan is almost 10 acres, white juice of me I want to know that if there is something I can do about it and if there is a help from
well, I hope your voice is sharp, so you must help me.
No, you're going to respond in English, so that's fine.
Yes, I'll respond in English, but I didn't get the core of the question.
I believe what he's saying is that there was a piece of land that was given to him in his inheritance, but the fact that there was a family elder and he was still in secondary school, the land was distributed. He's asking what can he do at this point in time.
Well, if he said inherited, I hope that it is his father who was giving it to him.
Yes.
Because if his father inherited that property, then normally he cannot also give it out to them. All right, okay, except that the necessary documentations are made. Or in other words, the father was in charge as an elder. But now the second part of it is what?
He's now wondering, I mean, the fact that he was in secondary school, so he wasn't an adult. What can he do now to try and get back his land?
Well, you can always make an application to the court. Right. You can always make application to the court. There's no time limit to it. Okay. And just bring all the matters before the court, and then the court will listen to it.
All right.
But I don't know whether they've obtained letters of administration authority to distribute the property.
Right.
And these things will come into play maybe more as we discuss.
Okay. We're going back to the phone lines, and we've got Gifty again. We got cut off from Gifty. Hi, Gifty. No problem.
So when you come on, only ninja, no, I go for a bar for not a damn Muslim, no, I saw Toa. I don't know what ban obey.
Okay, lawyer.
Well, that the husband is selling the matrimonial house.
Yes.
Whilst they are alive.
While they're still married. So he's taken another woman.
No. That one, you can take steps, go to the court and ask for an injunction.
Okay.
Remember that in the discussion earlier, we said that a spouse has 50% of the interests in the matrimonial property.
Yes.
All right. So if during marriage the husband or anyone is trying to dispose of the property in a property, you can just go to court and seek injunction to stop him from doing that one. That is the thing. Okay. He hasn't got that right to do.
All right, Gifty, I hope that helps. Injunction. Now we're going back to the phone lines for the last phone call. Benedicta. Good morning, Benedicta. My namesake, Benedicta. How are you?
Fine. Oh, please. I have a sister. She is the second wife, and the first wife is dead. The first one didn't give any child, but my sister has 3 children. And now the man is dead. Only last Sunday, we have finished the funeral arrangement. But the husband did well for only the first child of my sister. Only the first child. He was having 2 flats. So he gave first one to my sister first born. And after he gave them to another extra child. That child to first 1 flat. And the man bought additional house, but the additional one he didn't stated in the will.
Okay.
He wrote it with the pen on that one, but now the man is dead. But the first one he didn't add the name to the will. But we have the remaining houses there. But the first one name is not in it, and the 2 additional 2 children, their name is not in the will. Only the first born child of my sister and the extra child the man gave. And we don't know how they are going to do. And now the first part is demanding that the man didn't make any will. But my sister still have a copy of the will that the man did for him.
Okay. All right. Benny, let's
now a bit of a complicated one.
But let's take it one by one. Now, let's make it clear that the fact that a spouse has a child or a spouse does not have a child does not make any difference in this situation.
Right.
You know, sometimes people will come and say that yes, and I mean, she had 3 children, this person had none. No, the rights are not related to
the amount of children.
Yes, the amount of children or the number of children that you have. Now, if the person died made the will or not, the way she said it means that there's a contention as to whether he did make a will or he did not make a will. Like I said yesterday, what do? You go to the High Court registry and find out if there's somebody. Nobody can hide a will.
Right.
Go to the registry. If there's a will, then we'll look at it. Once there's a will, we read it. If indeed, like she is saying, that in the will provision was not made for some children, those children can also go to court under Section 13 of the Wills Act and say that they must be given reasonable provision.
Yes.
And that is the situation.
All right.
Right.
Okay, so reasonable provision given to the children. Thank you so much for that phone call, Benedicta, and that's the last phone call that we're going to be taking today in our legal bench. Lawyer Sama, very wonderful having you here, as usual, on a new day. And he'll be with us once again next week, because what we're going to do now is from Monday to Wednesday, we'll be having this legal discussion, and then later on in the week, we'll be having other discussions. So you can join us again on Monday and see Lawyer Sama here, right here on a new day. And we'll be putting his information out there as well, so that if you want to get in contact with him, you can do so. Thank you ever so much.
Pleasure.
All right.